The Virtual World Society. Join us in building better realities together.
Hello, everyone. My name is Laurel. I am the co-founder and director of Educators in VR, and I am one of the hosts here for, not even a host. I'm just going to greet you all, welcome you all, and then turn you over to our main host, Daniel Dyboski-Bryant. But at first, I want to welcome you to the Virtual World Society's Fireside Chat. This is a great and rare special opportunity for all of us to meet for free some of the world innovators, leaders, pioneers, global thinkers, all tackling the metaverse in unique and original ways. And we are so thrilled to have Greg Panos here. I'm like trying not to geek out too much here. I'm so excited that you're here. The Virtual World Society is changing hearts and minds for the VR for good and VR to bring out the best in humanity through XR technologies. And Daniel will tell you more about that in a moment, but I want to welcome you here. We will be taking questions at the end of the presentation today. So find yourself a seat and get comfortable and get ready to go. And I'd like to introduce to you our main host, Daniel Dyboski-Bryant, who is the co-founder and director of Educators in VR and also the executive director of the Virtual World Society. So he wears two big giant hats, and we need to get you some hats, my friend. And he's going to tell you more about this, and we are so thrilled to have you all here. And Greg, so very excited. All right, all yours.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Hi,
Laurel.
Daniel.
Hi there. Let's welcome these good folk together. Thank you all for coming here to our fireside chat. Usually this seat is occupied by the one and only Tom Furness, who's currently speaking at a different event, doing good work there. He's asked me to stand in, so it's my lucky day. I get to spend the next hour with you and our most esteemed guest, Greg Panos. How are you doing, Greg?
I'm doing great. Great.
All right.
Exciting to be here.
You are, we got talking already, and we could just pick up there, but I know you've brought some slides with us to talk us through that a little bit. But just a couple of moments. So you're a futurist, a pioneer, an XR innovator, and many other things. How would you, in a couple of sentences, describe yourself?
Fanboy,
Yeah.
evangelist, onboarding expert. Also, I experiment a lot with new technologies. I'm really an early adopter, and I have fairly substantive technical background in problem solving, complex procedures and technologies. And
fantastic.
I pride myself in my ability to, I consider myself a reductionist. So I try to take complicated things and simplify them and make them really easy for people to engage without having
That's a very valuable skill.
Yeah, it's useful for everyone in the world to learn how to analyze things and try to figure out how to reduce all the number of steps required to achieve the maximum impact.
Wonderful. So I'm going to hand over to you in a minute, and I'm going to ask a couple of questions and make comments about what you're showing us. But just before we do that, as we were chatting earlier, you were saying you're an onboarder of VR. Greg, since the mid 80s, has been schlepping hardware around the US and maybe abroad, putting people in headsets since the mid 80s. Now, I don't know, maybe one other person here has been even aware of VR since then. And I have no doubt that you're one of the people who's put some of the most people in headsets in the world. So that's itself is a great accomplishment. So shall I bring up the first slide for you, Greg? Should we get into this? Wonderful. And to kick us off, maybe, back in the 80s, how did you get in to this space? How did you adopt it at such an early, what was your entry point?
If you could bring up the next slide, or the first slide.
Yeah.
All right, there you go.
Yeah.
So, I didn't land in the VR field by accident. I started in the field of computer animation But I
Yeah.
went to college for journalism and communications. So I got a degree in TV production direction and a minor in film at Ohio University, which had a really terrific media department at the time.
Yes.
And I played around with electronic music there as well. But once I graduated, um, I was going to maybe take a job at ABC Television in New York. And I just decided that I didn't want to be doing that. It was a union job. I had to schlep
Yeah.
into Manhattan from Westchester County where I lived. And I had already discovered computer graphics through various articles that were running and decided this is what I wanted to be doing, much to the chagrin of
Yes.
my parents. And, back then a middle-class family could afford to put somebody through college and
Right.
have them make one decision or another without kind of dishonoring their commitment. But in my case, there were 3 computer animation facilities, all on the East Coast. The top ones were there. And
Yeah.
so I went and pushed myself onto the people that ran these companies. And the only way I could get in there was to try to help them with marketing, to bring in accounts to do computer animation for projects and commercials.
Yeah.
And I I looked very nice, and I in a suit and tie, and I learned the vocabulary, and I
Yeah.
convinced them that I was a good person to help sell and market their services. Um, well, I didn't get to do that for very long because the movie Tron was happening, and all
Yes.
the facilities, 2 of the facilities were swamped with work from Tron, of shots that they had been given from Disney, and
Yes.
they were lucrative contracts, and these are what keep these 2 facilities really humming for a while. So they didn't really
Yeah.
have any available compute time or personnel to work on any projects that I would bring in, so I wasn't going to make any money on commission. So I was at Magi, started at Magi Synthovision, which wasn't too far from where I live. And I worked with Dr. Philip Middleman, who was the founder of that company, and helped them do some marketing, and went to advertising agencies in New York and tried to explain computer animation to them, what the benefits were. And once they got swamped with work from Tron, I left for Manhattan to work with digital effects, where there were a couple of other computer graphics luminaries. Jeff Kleiser was there, and a number of other people were the founders, and busy working there on commercial projects. And then they got a bunch of shots from Tron, and there wasn't any real opportunity to sell any of their time
Tron
to
took
any.
over for a while.
Right. Yeah. Tron was the 800-pound gorilla that really took over the whole computer animation commercial
I
industry
need
for
to
a
go
while.
back and watch that again. Yeah.
Right. So in the slide, Magi Synthovision in the right and top right, and then digital effects on the bottom right.
Yeah.
And then once I left digital effects, I went to New York Institute of Technology, and I got hired as a director, as an instructor in the TV 101 department to teach television production. And with they had a state-of-the-art computer graphics lab, which was right across the
Nice.
campus from where I was teaching, and somehow I felt like I landed at the right place, but in the wrong room. And I did that for a while, and then I managed to sneak into the lab one day, and I met the vice president of the lab, the computer graphics lab, and he took a liking to me instantly. And as soon as I finished my semester teaching, um, they had given me a scholarship, and it didn't really have any value to me. I wanted to be working in the lab with all the other scientists. Ed Catmull and a lot of the Pixar founders were there.
Wow.
So I got hired in the lab to do market development and to do competitive project and market analysis to help them grow their product line. They were starting to sell paint systems and computer animation systems. They had the images system. They had the Bebop program. They ran on Evans and Sutherland picture system, which was my first brush with real-time hardware, which became my love of my life, is real-time rendering hardware. Most of the other real-time rendering systems that I had heard of and eventually would work with were image generators for the flight simulation community, and they were very, very expensive and difficult to gain access to unless you worked for an aerospace company. And so I was at NYIT for about a year, and my dad died.
This is all just slide one. You've got a whole bunch more slides. I think we're going to have to automatically extend this session by another half an hour, but go on.
Oh, okay. I'll bring up the next slide.
All right.
Okay, that's good. So anyway, I was at NYIT for about a year. My dad died, and he had a business in Florida, and I had to leave and go to Florida to work with that business. And
how old were you, Greg,
when
that happened?
I think I was 22 or 23.
So you lost your dad at quite a young age. I'm sorry.
Yeah. And so when I was in Florida, I sent out resumes to companies that had made image generation systems, and there was one of them in San Diego called GTI, and they had a system they were developing called the Poly 2000. It was the size of a gigantic refrigerator, and it cost $300,000. But I managed to get in touch with the vice president of marketing, and I met him at the University of South Florida in Orlando, and was interviewed and hired on the spot to relocate to San Diego. So as soon as I finished off with the family business, I relocated to California. And then
how many years did you have to wrap up the family business, if you don't mind me asking?
Oh, about 6 months or so. I mean, I had my brother was alive at that point, and he was helping a lot, and the other family members, and I just knew that that's not what I wanted to be doing. And
Okay.
And so I was just thrilled to move to California and work for this cool new company in San Diego that had this amazing piece of hardware that I now had access to. I was hired as an application engineer to develop products.
I can just imagine that feeling.
Services.
Kind of
it was amazing.
Feeling that you're plugging into something. This is where it's at, and I'm here, and I'm part of it.
It was.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
So Rockwell International bought, I think, 3 systems from them to do simulation work for the space division and the space station division, which was a new division that was formed at Rockwell to win the space station contract from NASA.
Oh, wow.
And when Rockwell was down there for doing various things, getting ready to take delivery on these systems, I was helping them as an application engineer. And after about a year at GTI, I realized I didn't really want to stay there for a couple of different reasons. So Rockwell hired me, and I moved up to Downey, California, and I became the lead engineer for simulation and visualization for the space station division. And I had access to my own my own Poly 2000, which is in the slide. And I worked primarily on a lot of the mission planning for space shuttle and in real-time simulation of human factors for various experiments that were being planned for shuttle missions. And Rockwell lost the space station contract. They were underbid by McDonnell Douglas, and I got moved into the space division, and then I got clearances to work on military projects, and I began working on some of the Star Wars weapons, Brilliant Pebbles, kinetic kill vehicles, space-based laser. I was doing all the simulations for that kind of work for lots of other contracts that were.
And this is still in the late 80s. We're not even we're barely in the 90s yet, and all of that is that. Oh my word.
Yeah, well, I left Rockwell in 1990. Well, when I was at Rockwell, I was the chairman twice and vice chairman twice of SIGGRAPH Los Angeles, which is the largest local chapter of SIGGRAPH. So I was already getting into the entertainment industry, and I had like I said, a degree in TV and film. So that was pretty appropriate, and I got to meet a lot of the luminaries in the computer graphics industry at that point, and ran quite a few meetings. And I was also one of the lone voices in the real-time simulation and upcoming VR to try to push SIGGRAPH in that direction in LA. And
I wanted to ask, I hope I'm not jumping the gun, but had you met Tom Purness or any of the other folk involved in that yet at this point?
Well, Tom was doing work with Wright-Patterson Air Force Base on some of the simulation systems that they were working on. And I frequently needed to be at various corporate and military simulation facilities to either work with a technology or give them advice. So I knew of him, and we were paths had crossed here and there, and we both started gravitating towards immersive technology at that point. And the next slide.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, and so also when I was just after Rockwell, I went to work for a company called Star Technologies, which was out of North Carolina. They had a California office. They were making a real-time image generator as well, just prior to Silicon Graphics entry into that field. And I worked out of their Southern California office, again, as an applications engineer, trying to drum up business and help customers onboard into the new tech. And I met Brett Leonard and Jamil Everett, the producers of The Lawnmower Man through SIGGRAPH. And I worked with them to present ideas that I was floating at Rockwell before I left. One of them was the Orbitron, this wheel that the person is.
This was your idea?
To. Well, there were a number of people that ended up building things like this that were being shown at VR conferences later on. But I had built a prototype plans for Rockwell to do simulation with the system. So I showed Brett and Jamil a lot of my drawings, and they got all excited about it. And I think that kind of pushed them in the direction to do something.
It is
like
a great
that.
visual when you look at it. Is immediately involving. Like, what is going on? Okay, cool.
Right. So next slide.
Just quick show of hands or animation, move a little bit. Who's seen Lawnmower Man? Anyone here seen it? Give us some emojis. Almost everybody's seen it. And just before we skip, I just a little aside, Tom also tells a story about Lawnmower Man. He was asked to be an advisor on it, and when he read the script, he was quite upset because it does paint a fairly dystopian kind of, and so it's interesting to hear another side of a story about that. I just wanted to share.
Well, Brett had made horror films before he did this one, so this one ended up being a horror film. My favorite Brett Leonard movie is Virtuosity. By the way, if you have a chance to watch Virtuosity, that's another Brett Leonard film he did as a follow-up, and I love that one. But again, it's also very dystopian and
very dark. Okay, all right.
So now, I also met Timothy Leary
as well.
Wow. Timothy Leary was fascinated with virtual reality, and I was working with my friend Richard Cray, and we produced a musical performance animation for a company called Sim Graphics, which I was one of the early founders in. And I didn't stay with Sim Graphics. I just kind of helped them get kickstarted, and they turned into a simulation company, and eventually they became a company doing virtual characters, real-time virtual characters. And that was my primary direction that I wanted to go in with Sim Graphics initially, and they weren't really interested in that, so I left early, and eventually that's exactly what they ended up doing, and that was the whole thrust of the direction of that company. So, and I was kind of like, oh, okay, they got it, and I'm already gone. So we did this amazing pioneering work with facial motion capture. And Richard Cray was a Broadway singer and actor that was my close friend. And so I helped pull together that project, and we showed it at a lot of conferences. And my friend David Blackburn started the virtual reality special interest group in Los Angeles, and I helped him co-run that. And we had many, many, many meetings at the Electronic Cafe and elsewhere. And I met Timothy Leary. And at this point, I was starting to get into avataarism, or human simulation, 3D digitizing of people. That became my next raging, exciting thing to be doing. And I digitized Timothy Leary using a cyberware system at SIGGRAPH. And
do you still have that model?
No, as a matter of fact, Silicon Graphics was running the image generators that were attached to the cyberware, and they promised me they would save the data and they would tag it for me, but they were demo systems, and when whatever happened to the demo systems, they wiped all the hard drives. They lost all the 3D scans of all the famous people that they did at SIGGRAPH. Yeah, I had shepherded quite a few people over to that booth to build 3D scans of them very early in their life.
Man, that would be such a boon to have access to that. Makes me cry. Well,
I know, it was upsetting.
I can only imagine. You're the person who kind of put in the blood, sweat, and tears there. Just briefly, what was Timothy Leary? Obviously, his background is in psychedelics and kind of intelligence increase, consciousness expansion, and so on. what was his interest in virtual reality and the technology? What did he see?
Oh, he was a technophile early on. So any new technology that looked like it played some role in human evolution and human consciousness was exciting to him. And I introduced him to quite a few interesting things that he got very excited about, and
Wonderful.
helped him sort of network with other people and show up at conferences and learn some of the lingua franca of the immersive industry, so he could incorporate it into his own meme stream. And
Interesting.
I would, often find him wandering around at a conference, and I would introduce him to other people, John Perry Barlow, and a lot of other people in the industry, Brenda Laurel. They, Timothy Leary was an interesting draw to have on a panel. So he ended up getting a lot of mind share at panels, talking about VR and whatever he would pontificate about. So next slide.
Okay. Yeah.
I began scanning myself very early when I was.
This is you early?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think I'm about 30 or 31 here. I'm up at the Cyberware facility in Monterey. That was one of the first companies building 3D scanning technology. This their 3030 system, which was designed to scan people and move around them using a laser photogram in real time. On the right is the Inspect system, which is a different system. It uses a structured light, and it takes pictures with various lines on the face, contour lines that could determine depth on a post-analysis basis. So here's me being scanned, and then showing the
was
data,
still
and then
early 90s?
Yes, and then the texture mapping. So there were a few companies that were building 3D scanners.
Did you develop these systems as well?
No, I didn't. I just basically dug around and found anybody working in the 3D scanning industry. And in lots of cases, I would invite them to be on panels or to do exhibits at shows, and work out interesting scenarios where people would show up and be scanned, or have them do celebrities. So I was one of the first sort of guinea pigs. And this is something that I've continued to do throughout my life. I've been 3D digitized at many, many junctures throughout the timeline of my life. So I probably have the largest body of 3D data throughout a human being's lifetime of myself.
Really? You should create a display of that for like through the ages. If you could
I
all
do.
get it into one place.
Yeah, my Oculus Home in on my Rift system has all of my faces lined up on a shelf. Yeah.
I
So you have to
hope
come
one day
visit
you
me.
invite me and I can come enjoy that.
Yeah. You have to do your PC.
Amazing.
You have to do it in your PC. As soon as I get an Oculus Home in the Quest or the Pro, then I'll it'll be a little bit more accessible to a larger number of people. I have to dumb down the data a little bit. Next slide.
Sure.
Okay.
There we go.
So I also in the 80s I got to know Morton Heilig, who's one of the grandfathers of virtual reality. He filed some of the very earliest patent. He was an early 3D filmmaker. I'm a huge fan of 3D. I've been a 3D photographer my whole life. I've many thousands of 3D photographs all throughout my life that I've used different kinds of 3D cameras with. And Morton and I were very close. I really considered him like a father to me. We both taught together at Cal State Long Beach. He taught a class there. I taught the advanced virtual reality lab for graduate students. And we spent a lot of time together. I put him on a lot of conferences, on panels. I've organized many panels for conferences at the various very large conferences that Mort would show up and talk about. He was a really interesting person and speaker with just a wonderful bloodline of interactive and immersive tech. He created the Sensorama. He created some of the very earliest patents and technology, head-mounted technology. And he also invented a powered scooter, which nowadays are everywhere. Electric scooter.
He invented that.
Well, I think probably one of the very earliest ones. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
fantastic.
and then he passed away in 1997 of melanoma of the brain. It's really sad.
Right.
I was living in Hawaii at the time. I wasn't able to go to the service, but I just adored Mort, and he really cared about me. Next slide. So I wrote the virtual reality source book. I did this as an exercise to educate myself. And I wanted to be the consultant in the industry that really knew everything. So the way to do that was to build a book, dump all my knowledge in the book, categorize it reasonably as well as I thought I could, and then sell it. It was about 150 page, photocopied, bound, spiral bound,
self-published,
handmade, self-published book, and originally started as a contract for the people that started the Virtual Reality World Conference, or started Virtual Reality World magazine, and they didn't like my first draft, so I just kind of bailed on that project. And they said, if you want to publish yourself, fine, we don't care. So I elaborated and added to it, and then self-published. I was able to survive on that, for a couple of years. Made a good amount of money at the time, and I brought a lot of people into the industry that way. My friend Dave Blackburn, who started the Virtual Reality SIG, was one of my first customers. I hand delivered it to him in Santa Monica, and he was one of the smartest people I knew. And he absorbed that book cover to cover, completely memorized it. And now I had competition because he wanted to consult, I wanted to consult, but we ended up being the very best of friends, and we worked together on so many projects while he was alive.
Fantastic.
And then
wonderful journey.
I bought my first Jaguar on the proceeds of that book. And if you can see the license is, California license said virtual, and the frame at the top of the frame, it said, "I'd rather be in," and the bottom of it said reality.
Virtual.
So the license plate says, "I'd rather be in virtual reality." And
I would just share a little.
Yeah.
Go on. A little anecdote.
I would show up at the Beverly Hilton for the digital at Digital Hollywood conferences, where I spoke at many times, and I would always make a grand entrance by driving into the little rotunda where you could see me get out of my car.
Nice. A little anecdote on that because of the license plate. I flew out to the US. I live in the UK, and I flew out to the US in May. Spent a week with a very good friend who's also a VR aficionado, and we did a massive road trip in his car, and the license plate ends OBJ. We just had a running joke that we were driving in his OBJ. For OBJ is a file type of a 3D model,
right?
And the joke was that his car was actually a virtual 3D model.
I think that was a format that was developed by Wavefront Technologies, by the way. OBJ.
Okay, there you go.
And they were one of the three large computer graphics software vendors at the time that ran initially on Silicon Graphics hardware. So most of the big companies had licenses for Wavefront and Softimage and a few others. So this is one of the first simulations of a human being that was actually put on a tablet that could be rotated in real time. This picture was taken by the bottom right is with me holding the tablet. Yeah, that's mid 90s. One of the first tablets you could buy. It was about $5,000. This is me at the Consumer Electronics Show. I was speaking on a panel, and this picture was taken in the press room by the science fiction author Jerry Pournelle. So he has the photo credit, and he was a good friend while he was alive. And so next slide. By the way, the virtual reality starter kit on the right. My book was turned into a CD-ROM format, and I sold many, many thousands of these. Maybe I think I got 50 cents a piece for each one, which was a lot cheaper than the $140 book. Yeah, but
sure.
I got a chance to author my first CD-ROM multimedia book, with all live, clickable indexing and everything else. It was really quite an interesting experience.
Very cool.
Yeah.
And then
this is an excerpt from a slide that I presented at the Augmented Reality World Conference a number of years ago that I spoke at. The session is called Avataarism, and it's on the internet, so you can watch it. But it's a timeline of virtual reality in the movies, and mostly having to do with really about human simulation in the movies. So I list at the various times these various movies and things, and they're all worth watching because they're the embodiment of virtual characters in these various movies changes and advances along the timeline of the technology as it began to advance as well.
Yeah.
And as people began to develop better software and learn better ways to craft virtual characters.
In
Congress.
in a kind of a comparable way with electronic music? Would you
Yeah.
see like a similar progression?
Yeah, well, right.
Technology-based
Starting with
progression?
like the original Buchla box and moving on to Robert Moog and
Mhm.
I know a lot of people in the
Mhm.
electronic music industry too. I was actually writing letters to Robert Moog when I was 11 years old. I built my first synthesizer when I was about 10 or 11 years old, and
Wow.
we were writing back and forth, and eventually actually got
Fantastic.
access to a really large Moog synthesizer when I was in college. They had an
Yeah.
electronic music lab with one of the pioneering professors in that area. I was one of his students.
Fantastic.
So yeah, on the top right, 2013, and there are many examples since 2013, but I list
Sure.
the light stage that was developed by Dr. Paul Debevec at USC ICT. He got
Mhm.
his grad work done at Berkeley. He built one of the first cylindrical structures that had lots and lots of inward-facing cameras that would create an array
Yeah.
of photographs that
Yeah.
was processed through photogrammetry and created a real high resolution multi-directional model of a human being, and that was
Mhm.
used as a prop. And some of the digitization results were used in the movie The Congress.
Yeah.
So okay, next slide.
All right.
So yeah, really a large substantive portion of my career has been in the human simulation industry, evangelizing and educating people and adopting early technologies. And I've always, as a writer and educator, I've been able to
Yeah.
try to think about nomenclature, how we name these various things. So, now that avataarism is a real thing and human simulation is a real thing, and digital humans and virtual characters, I try to create a taxonomy here that
Yeah.
has different names of things that I
Mhm.
think are different names for different kinds of three-dimensional simulations of people. So this is
Yeah.
a slide where I try to work that out and educated people. Simulacra, synthespian, personiform is my name of an actual virtual copy of a human being that's scanned from the real person when they're
Okay.
alive, or from photographs of the person using
Uh-huh.
photogrammetry techniques, various photographs from different angles that is
Is
supposed to look like them as they existed in life. So it's your
is
definitive
that
life copy.
is a similar term now like a virtual twin? Would that
Well,
be
yeah, digital double,
digital
virtual
double, virtual?
twin. Yeah, those
Okay.
are all different names
But the
for
idea that it's
story
photorealistic.
file. Yeah, there are different companies that have come up with their naming
Yeah, okay.
conventions. I try to get everyone to adopt the word personiform. I wasn't real happy with the word avatar. It really
Mm,
was a little too general for me. I was trying to get the world to adopt something that meant a photorealistic version of a real person that existed, and
gotcha.
not a a simulation of a dog or something like that. I mean, I
Yeah,
could be
naming
I could
is
have
an
a dog
interesting
avatar, but it wouldn't look
yeah,
like me.
naming is an interesting
Yeah,
dynamic, and the words
yeah,
that stick often aren't the words that
right.
maybe even make the most sense, right? They just
Yeah,
kind of
it's as
captures
much a
the
marketing
imagination.
and
So
an ownership
yeah,
issue as it is.
yeah,
Companies want to have a trademark they can sell a product and have the thing. I mean, Meta is
yeah,
running into all sorts of concerns now over the fact that there are 200 companies that had Meta in their name, all trying to,
yeah,
you know, say that they stole their name and everything else. So
yeah, yeah. That
Meta's a
was a
Greek word,
pretty
right?
that was a pretty
So
big move, a big bold
yeah,
move on their part. But then if you got
right,
the lawyers,
yeah.
maybe you don't sweat it.
Well, meta, was a word that the ancient Greeks created, so it's
Right.
been around a long time.
All
Okay,
right.
next slide. Um,
Lovely. Okay.
so I got into once I discovered 3D scanning, that
Greg,
was
sorry, before
something
you
I
get
could.
into this, just to
Yes.
let you know, we're about 20 minutes out from the end, and
Okay.
we're about halfway through the slides. I don't want to rush you, and I'd love to have you back again, but it would be nice at the end to have a bit of time for
Okay.
the audience to ask you some questions
Yeah.
because you have amazing stories. So,
I'll speed it
yeah,
up.
lovely.
So I recently spoke at the VRTO conference, the Virtual
Ah, yeah,
Reality Toronto, and
yeah.
scanning the real world into the metaverse was the name of
Hmm.
my talk, and I have a link for that too. I could share with people at some point.
Lovely. Yeah.
But this is one of the slides from there. here I'm scanning Lucas Risotto for
Yeah.
the first time he was ever digitized at the Oculus Connect conference. This is my primary 3D scanning system. Is a Zenfone AR. It's a discontinued smartphone that has an actual time of flight sensor in it, and actual
Okay.
3D scanning software that still works on it. And also Google Tango project had a small tablet that you could do similar things with. And now the latest versions of the iPhones all have LiDAR sensors that use either infrared dot projectors or time of flight camera technology to acquire 3D data. And here's a woman being scanned. Next slide.
Lovely.
So I have probably one of the largest libraries of 3D data that has been scanned from the real world of any human being. I've got
Wow.
hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of models of people, places, and things in the last 8 or 10 years. Here I am
Amazing.
scanning up at the museum in Palo Alto. And then here's Robert Scoble. I'm scanning
Yeah.
Robert Scoble, the journalist. And it's fun to do this. Everybody loves it when I scan people at a conference and then I show them the data and I rotate it in real
Yeah.
time. You can see how excited it is. I have so many photographs of me with a crowd of people surrounding me, and it looks like everybody's looking at like the second coming or something. They're so excited. So the next slide, please.
Lovely.
And then this is a
Yes.
list of various apps that run on the. Jackie told me that you know a little bit about some of these applications that run on the iPhone that are all for 3D scanning. So they all do
I've been
different
dabbling.
things in
Yeah.
in different ways. So this is something anybody could get into now if they get one of the newer iPhones and they download a few of these apps.
Hmm.
Next slide.
Sure. And
And
I should just point out, so these are LiDAR based things, but a lot of the apps coming out now are actually photogrammetry based
right,
things. That is a different process for also capturing 3D models, more
correct.
available on different models of phones. But
Yeah, you can do a
yeah,
regular camera. You could just take pictures from different points of view and pump them
right.
into various programs to obtain a 3D model.
Yeah. Yeah. Lovely.
Here I am with my friend Richard, the singer, inside of Paul Debevic's Light Stage. This is 3D scan I did of Paul Debevic that I sent him on his birthday. This is a group
Wow.
mannequin scan. I call them mannequin scans because when I'm going to scan a group, I tell everybody to stay very still when I get close to you with the sensor. And that
Uh-huh.
obviously makes for nice stable data of that person.
Yeah.
So there's a
Yeah.
conference on virtual humans I just spoke at not too long ago. And these are all the other speakers. Here I spent a lot of time in metaverses as well, and I've spent a lot of
High
time
fidelity.
onboarding
Yeah.
3D data into metaverses. And
Yeah.
SVVR had events that they were doing in high fidelity. So here I am down here bottom in the red.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
here's Richard playing his ukulele at his 60th birthday party, which was one of the largest group scans ever performed. There were about
Wow.
I don't know 30 or 40 people in this wonderful space up in Northern California overlooking the water. And I told
Amazing.
everybody, when I get close to you, stay still. And I walked through the whole crowd and I got everybody in the room and created this amazing piece of 3D data, which I was able to
Amazing.
onboard into the metaverse. So I onboarded that into Sansar. And here's
Uh-huh.
two people from Sansar that are visiting in the space, looking around the 3D data of that group scan for his birthday,
Amazing.
was
Yeah.
Richard's birthday.
Brilliant.
Next slide.
There's few things I enjoy more at the moment than bringing the real world into VR and walking
Oh,
around and
it's so
sharing it. There's
exciting.
a
Yeah,
special delight about that, isn't it? Yeah.
this is the big thing I've been evangelizing. So
Yeah.
I have a looking glass display. This is my mother. I
Ah, yeah.
scanned her when she was 80 years
Wow.
old. She died at
Wow.
91. Um,
Wow.
and that was about 8 or 9 years ago that she even passed away. So this data is
Mm.
probably 20 years old. It was done on an
Wow.
InSpec, but I was able to obtain the data. This is an earlier version of me as well. There's a half a dozen of me at different times in my life. And this is
Yeah.
Richard. And with the looking glass, you can go from side to side and you can see the 3D data, or you can rotate it without using
Yeah.
glasses. It's a
Yeah.
lenticular 3D immersive display that was developed by Looking Glass out of Brooklyn.
Nice.
Okay, next slide.
Lovely.
Um, This is a group scan from some luminaries at SIGGRAPH, where I stood in the middle and I scanned everybody around me, and then I showed them the data. This is a salon that was at Jackie Morey's home. There's quite a few people in the room here. This is a piece of data. I onboarded into Mozilla Hubs, so you can go in there and you can wander around the room and go right up to everybody's
Oh, really?
face.
It's in Mozilla Hubs? Fantastic.
Yeah, I'll have to go find the link and dig it up and send it to you.
Please do.
This is one of the largest scans I did. It was a vintage store up in San Francisco called Stuff off of Valencia Avenue and the 101. It's at the one end all the way to the other end is about, I don't know, about 400 feet. And I basically moved in and out of all the little cubby holes with all the vintage stuff. And I really depleted the battery on the phone, but it did not crash, and it saved all the data.
When was this, Greg?
This was, I don't know, about 6 or 7 years ago, maybe five or 6 years ago.
And what app were you using at the time, or?
I think I used Constructor, which was a piece of Google software that ran with Tango. To use the large scans, I use Constructor, and I use the Matterport Scenes app for detailed up-close scans that are pure point clouds.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So, okay, the next slide.
Lovely.
Okay. Oh, this is the birthday party I was telling you about. Richard's. Yeah. He's playing the ukulele, and then everyone's watching, and then I walked around the room. Jackie was there, and she took a video of the whole process, and then everybody could see the camera output, my scanner output on this large screen while they were being scanned. So they knew when I was getting close to them to stay still, and everyone else got to watch each person materializing in the 3D data as it scanned in real time.
And, this was real time. How cool!
Yes. Yeah. So
cool.
The device on the phone will output in real time with this with this app. You could see it assembling everything while it's doing it, and I just basically screen shared with a large screen, and he was playing, accompanying the whole thing. Okay, next slide.
Wow, the stories you've got. Yeah.
So I've done various case studies. There's a woman that lives in my neighborhood. There's this beautiful garden. She's very old. I don't even know if she's still alive. Another lady that lived in my neighborhood with her dog, Heidi and Rasputin. A friend, Brett Grider, have since passed away. I have 3D scans of these two people. And then I've scanned SIGGRAPH luminaries, Rodney Stock, Ed Sachi, Ed Kramer, Kevin Mack, Noni De La Pena, Mark Bolas, John Carmack, Tony Parisi. And I've scanned Brett Leonard.
Great names.
And then some more listed down on the bottom. Jackie and Patty is another great one. Statues, all kinds of stuff. I should put all this together in a virtual museum, which I did that in the,
should.
Yeah, I did it in the Neos VR metaverse, because I can import point clouds directly into that metaverse. Most of the importing restrictions on metaverses are really quite strict, and it's hard to get 3D data in there. You have to do a lot of pre-processing to even get it in there on their format. Is there another slide, or is that the last one?
I think no, that was the last of your slides, at least.
Okay, now let me bring up my notes for a second. Hopefully I won't disappear.
Yeah, please.
Okay. Sure. So I also work with Dr. Joseph Beard, who's one of the world's leading expert in avatar law and humans. Yes.
Greg, just a moment. For some reason, as you're doing that, your avatar is kind of spinning around. I wonder if it's something you're doing with your headset. If you're
how about now?
Right now you're moving again. Interesting.
Okay.
I'm not sure why.
All right. Well, it's just mostly notes of various conferences. If you can hear me, SIGGRAPH, Screen Actors Guild, Digital Hollywood CES.
Let you dance a bit.
Yeah. VR and Persons with Disabilities, Augmented World Expo. I published a number of articles as well, and I could put some notes together and make them available for the webpage if you want some of those additional things. So I've done quite a bit of writing. Nice. Yeah, and
Amazing.
many speaking engagements. It was too many to even remember. Probably at least 100 over the
So
years.
first of all, Greg, that's amazing. And I'm sorry to have rushed you through just because I want people
Okay.
to be able to engage a little bit with you. But please give us an emoji fire hose for Greg's stories and career, and what I
Thank
can
you.
only imagine has led so many other people into this space, by early adopting and innovating like you have, Greg.
Right.
Amazing. And just very briefly, first question from me, and then I'll open it up and I'll explain to you how to use the. What are you most excited about at the moment, right now, after everything you see in your own journey? Right now, what are you most excited about?
Well, I got my MetaQuest Pro the day before yesterday, and I spent yesterday organizing it and playing with it. And I
What do you
really,
make of it?
really, I love it. I think you get what you pay for. If you're going to spend $1,500
Okay.
bucks, you're going to get what you pay
Okay.
for. And I've
That's an
tried every
endorsement.
VR advisor in the world, including prototypes that never made it to market. And I'm just so delighted that Mark Zuckerberg just got all excited about VR and bought Oculus and has pumped a
Jumped
ton of
in.
money into this. This is what we dreamed about in the 90s, that some big company would decide to just plow a lot of money into this and make products that you could buy and use.
Fantastic.
And, back in the 90s, and Jackie will testify to that, this stuff was expensive. And you had to work at a real high-end lab. And a lot of my labs were classified. So I had to really pull strings to even show people anything just to get them in the lab. And
Fair point. Fair point.
yeah.
All right. Well, MetaQuest Pro, then look out for that one.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I love
Now-
that. And I also I'm crazy about 3D scanning. I do it all the time. I always have a scanner phone in my pocket. It's like having a superpower. It really is like
It
having
is.
a superpower.
I've gotten into it, and I know I'm hooked.
Right.
And like even without a LiDAR scanner, just like a couple of easy free photogrammetry apps on your phone now.
Yes.
Oh, fun we've had. Amazing.
Yeah, and there's
if
all
you're
kinds
not
of great
already
technique.
into photogrammetry and scanning, you should definitely do it. You don't need a LiDAR phone, although the LiDAR technology is quite advanced and very handy. But get into it.
Well, it makes an event out of the scanning. Yeah.
It does.
Makes an event
Oh,
out
I
of
see.
it.
Okay, yeah, because you're watching it in real time.
Yeah, and there's an art to scanning by hand as well. The manner in which you move or move around somebody, the direction that you move, the speed at which you move, controls how much data you have, how the fidelity of the data looks, what you end up with later. And you can always, bring these databases into MeshLab and decimate and clean up and throw away outlying points and other things that are part of the scanner noise or environmental problems that make the data usable, even though it may not be perfect.
Thank you. Let's open it up to our audience, and we've got some questions coming up right here. For those of you, Laurel, I'm assuming you're ahead of the game. Thank you. You should be able to see at your bottom right little panel, and one of them says raise hand. If you have a question, please click the raise hand. We've got 2 coming in already, and I will use my panel here to manage your participation. So first question is, why am I not surprised? OGVR goddess Jackie. You should be on megaphone now. Jackie, where are you? Here with the red hair and the blue dress. All right.
Hi, Jackie.
Hi. For some reason, I can't hear you, Jackie. Let me check that I did my end right. You are on megaphone, but for some reason, we're not hearing you.
You on a quest, Jackie? Yeah, we don't hear you. I don't hear her either.
Do you wanna see if you can get that fixed, Jackie, and we'll come back to you? I'll definitely keep you.
If you want to type it
definitely
out
keep you
to a
lined up.
message too.
Yeah, you could type out a message. Okay, we'll do that. We'll have Carlos while you're typing a message. Carlos,
Can we hear Carlos?
you should be on megaphone. Here we go.
I am.
The purple.
Hello.
We can hear Carlos. Good. Hi, Carlos.
Hello, Greg. Quite the life you have there.
I know.
I actually still have cart tape from Silicon Graphics back in the late 80s when I was
Yeah.
working on their paint system
Right.
that they had. The problem is I don't have any playback units anymore. And that's a really big problem for all that technology from many years ago, is that you need
Yeah.
playback devices. But what I was curious about is what is, I mean, you've got the Quest Pro. What happens next? What, let's say can you even say 5 years from now, or is things moving way too fast for you to even guess at that? That's my
Well,
question.
I think Oculus had
Thank
a
you.
depth sensor in the Pro, which they dropped from
Right,
the final
right.
manufactured product. Actually, it might
Ah,
actually be in the product and it's just disabled. They
right.
say they took it out because of modesty issues of being able to see through thin
Right.
clothing.
Mhm.
I don't know if that's right. I think the depth sensors are notoriously for being power hungry, so they may have seen that the battery life of the product was reduced to 20 minutes instead of a couple hours
Mhm.
by having a depth sensor on. But it's nice to have a depth sensor like the Magic Leap, like the Microsoft HoloLens, because
Mhm.
you can do area mapping, you can build 3D data, you can
Mhm.
do all kinds of great environmental onboarding and data generation with a depth sensor. You can also do
Mhm.
it with photogrammetry and with machine learning, which I think in a sort of a low grade way, the Quest Pro is capable of doing. Really only for AR, it needs plane detection to know where the walls and floors are and various
Yeah.
surfaces for occlusion and other kinds
Mhm.
of concerns. But
Mhm.
for me, I'm spoiled. I want to know. I want all the data in my
Yeah.
room in color. I want color point clouds. I want them to be detailed. I want to export that to another environment. I want someone
Yeah.
else to occupy that environment and
Full
share it with
access.
me as if they're in my room. Yeah, and be able to do it quickly. So I'm
Greg,
guessing
So,
that more efficient depth sensors will end up being included in VR headsets to come. And my
mhm.
other prediction is that we'll probably see a lot of headsets that are basically doing high bandwidth frame serving. So the headset itself is serving positional information to a
Mhm.
larger a server, and the server is
Mhm.
sending back super high detailed rendered information on a frame by frame basis at 30 or 100 frames per second. So all the headset really needs to be doing is frame serving very well. It
Mhm.
doesn't need to do any real rendering of its own except for overlays. And you can build these kinds of devices much cheaper with a lot less
Mhm.
weight and a lot longer power, as long as you've got a server and a Wi-Fi 6 or 6E connection talking to it
Mhm.
directly without any interference. So I think we're
Mhm.
going to see that. And we're going to see lots of very advanced metaverses online that utilize that technology to serve to headsets. And you don't need to get a super high-end PC to do
thank
it.
Interesting.
you. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. All right, Jackie, I've been watching you type furiously. Have you sent it to Greg? Greg, do you see a question
Uh,
anywhere or text
uh,
message?
yeah. Where do I look for it?
It
Um,
should have popped up when she sent a message. Should have kind of popped
yeah.
up in front of you.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
trying to think who Jackie, you sent it to
World's
Greg, correct?
people
All right. Um,
requests.
yeah, it should have
Uh,
kind of popped up. The text should have. Is it maybe because is Laurel still with us? Maybe Laurel's
Maybe he's
popped
do
out.
not disturb.
oh,
Yeah, I
really?
wonder whether it's because you're in the host zone.
Yeah, it
Um,
might be.
let's see what happens. Do you want to just move out here with us for a moment
So
and see if it
I had
pops up?
mute all. I had mute all toggled.
Ah, okay.
Jackie, maybe you can talk now. I don't know. No.
No.
Amplify, stage
That
blocker.
text didn't come through.
Hmm. That's a bummer.
Right. Try again, Jackie, with audio. Or if you can try and send text to someone else who can read it. I'm not sure if you can send it to me because if I'm in the host zone, I might have the same issue as Greg.
Hmm. Title.
We
Okay.
need someone to
Turn
fix
bubble
it.
off. I had my bubble on. I don't know if that mattered.
I'm
No.
not sure. Usually the text just comes up as a speech, but if you're in the host zone, it might be disabled so that participants actively can't do that. I'm a bit frustrated
It's
about
kind of,
that.
yeah, well, yeah, it's not something I've seen people do
Yeah.
very much.
Jackie, would you be able to send a similar version? You type it all out again. Maybe a
By the
shortened
way,
version. Oh, you'd hang in
you're
your
pulling her
head,
hair out at the
Jackie.
computer. I can see
For
her
the
now.
for the
Status is
a kingdom for a microphone.
Uh,
A microphone, a microphone, a kingdom for a microphone. Right, well,
okay.
thank you, Carlos, for that question. For
Dr.
everyone else,
Paradise.
now's your opportunity. We have just a minute left for one more question.
Yeah.
Please,
Over on the
please,
right,
please
Dr.
take this
Paradise.
opportunity.
He just raised his hand. You see him?
Oh, Dr. Paradise, you have a question? All right,
Can we
let
hear
me.
you?
You'll have to click the.
Hear me?
Okay, I can hear you. Yeah, just speak a little louder
on.
because you're far away.
Make sure your status is online.
Oh,
You
where
won't get messages.
status
Status is online. Or
Oh, where's the status menu? Check.
in settings general.
Okay. Settings. General online status available. Yeah.
Is available. Thanks for that, Dr.
Yeah.
Paradise.
Okay.
All
You have a
right.
question?
We do have. I think we've got yes. Dr. Paradise, your microphone's on. So if you have a question, you're with us now.
I didn't. I just wanted to try to debug this.
You
other
just
thing
wanted to
for
help
you.
out. Okay, appreciate
Yeah.
that.
Well,
Thank you
thanks
very
for
much.
trying. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
All right. Well, we are at time, and I'm
Okay.
gonna stay here until Jackie. Jackie, we're not going anywhere if you're gonna keep trying. But for the rest of us, one more round of emojis, please, for Greg and his amazing career and journey.
Thank
and all
you.
of the thank you, all of your milestones, victories, and thank you so much. Here, we'll shake your hand, Greg. I feel for Tom, but I will just accept it humbly, the honor and pleasure of being able to talk to you today.
Great. Yeah.
I'm going to be following you, and I share your passion and your thrill with scanning. I totally get it. We actually yesterday with my company Educators in VR, we ran second part of a two-part series called Accessible Photogrammetry for VR, just
Oh,
basically
cool.
using all of the accessible VR apps, bit of a workflow, how you do it, what file formats, tips and tricks and workflows and stuff like that. And then we brought in a bunch of photogrammetry examples and
Right.
trying to inspire other people to get into it with their mobile phones and start bringing it in. So that was a lot of good fun. Love to see some of your stuff someday.
I'd really look forward to a culture developing around 3D scanning and people scanning each other and their world and their environment, and being reverent about it. It's not just a gimmick, but something that younger people that may not even be born now, by the time they're my age or even half my age, this will be very, very normal and second nature to them all the time.
If you think about how the original black and white photographs from way back in the day, that was an experience, right? It was a moment. It was like a it was an event having a picture taken then, right?
Yes.
And still now when you look back, it kind of elicits or evokes this feeling of, wow, we're looking back in time at this thing. And I think early scans now might be that in 20, 30 years time, scans will be ubiquitous. We'll have a full digital copy of the entire planet.
Right.
But those first glimpses back to when it was, and you're going back 20, 30 years already. But yeah,
one of the,
I agree.
One of the methods and practices I pioneered is to bring 3 different cameras to a scan project. So not only do I have a depth scanner, but I also bring a 360 camera, and I also bring a 3D camera. So I position them in the same point, same origin point of the 3D scan. And then later on in the metaverse construct, I bring in the 3D data, I bring in a 360 photographs, and I wherever I take the photographs from, they appear as a bubble, and then I bring in 3D pictures, which I in the case of the birthday party with all the people in it, the outside perimeter is 3D photographs of the beautiful surrounding of the home, and the interior is where everybody's sitting on the floor watching the event.
I'd love to see some examples.
Yeah, Dr. Paradiso over here was actually at the event, and he's sitting in the middle of the floor. So, and then the 360 photographs. If you're in the metaverse, virtually like we are, and you lean your head into the 360 photograph, it turns into it's a real image of 360, and it's perfectly mapped against the 3D if you position it properly. So
I need to come and see this somehow, Craig.
Yeah, you have you're in virtual reality, and you lean your head in, and you lean your head out of the bubble, and now you're back in virtual reality, and you can see the bubbles hanging in the space.
Amazing.
So it's an amazing fusion of immersive information that anybody can do. They just have to gear up and figure out how to do it, and just remember to do it when there's something interesting.
And the figuring out with people like you and other people who are figuring this out, often you can find workflows and people are quite generously sharing how to do this because they're just so excited. They want other people to get into it. That's how I felt when I first got into VR 4 years ago. It's like kind of the curtain was drawn from my eyes, and I looked, wow, I want to get into this. How do I do that? And
maybe we can do a Zoom. Yeah, maybe we can do Zoom with the Virtual World Society, and I can run OBS and as a window into the actual metaverse, and I could be in the metaverse, and I could show everybody what it looks like.
I've done that a few
in
times,
real time.
like streaming in. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, maybe
I don't know. We can do it in these spaces. It's a it's a little.
Which reminds me, actually, very briefly. Please, everyone, we have a growing library of podcasts. The next podcast is a weekly. Comes out on Fridays. Please find it on iTunes and Spotify. We've already had some amazing guests. And Greg, if you haven't already been on it, I will work towards having you join us there as well, because the audio format is quite useful. Obviously, this will be on YouTube at some point as well. I think that here is our guy to put that up.
Yes, thank you, Daniel.
We also have Jackie here, who leads our next newsletter, which comes out quarterly. The first one was really well received. We're looking to get even further adoption, so please spread the word and also find it on the website when it goes live. That'll be coming out in November. And we got, I think, some of your work featured in that as well. Fantastic, exactly. So there'll be more content about you, Greg, there. And I think upcoming events, we've got a community event November 10th with me here in Altspace. November, we're taking a break from Fireside Chats because of Thanksgiving. Next community event in December, Fireside Chat in December. And we also have the Nextant Award event, which is happening early December. We haven't got a final date for that yet, which will be in Engage. But we will be sharing news about that. We'll be screaming and shouting about it. Our Nextant Awards program honors movers and shakers, legacy awards, educator of the year this year, Spirit Rising Star Award. It's a nice way of honoring some of the people doing great work in the space. And with that, thank you so very much, Jackie. I'm heartbroken that we could not get your audio fixed in here. Of all of the people in this space, you go back with Greg so many years. So we'll have to pick that up sometime. Anyway, Greg, I cannot
Jackie
tell you
is
how
the
much
sister I never had.
Lovely. It's been a huge joy, pleasure, honor.
Thank you.
Greg, I hope we keep
been an honor myself.
in touch and have you back in some way, shape.
I love sharing. I really do.
Yeah.
And I'm very lucky and very blessed.
I feel that there's a couple of collaborations that we maybe make happen down the road sometime.
Lord knows I need help.
One more time, everyone. Greg, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And Greg, if you want to hang around for another few minutes, completely up to you. If you need to go, feel free to go. I know people usually
I would
have
love
a bit of a
to.
chat
I have I need to take a bathroom break, so
all right.
right
Well,
back.
you do that. I'll stay here for another few minutes, and back we can
Thank you.
pick it up there. Cool. All right.